Welcome to the Anomalous Review, the official podcast of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, or SCU. My name is Michael Glosson. I'm a philosopher of science and technology and the host of the show. Today, I'm joined by Rich Hoffman, an executive board member of SCU, to discuss our organization's upcoming annual conference for 2025. It's taking place from June 6th through the 8th at the Von Braun Center in downtown Huntsville, Alabama. Rich and I dive into the conference's themes, some featured speakers, and planned panel discussions which will feature some exciting updates on ongoing SCU research projects, including at least one significant announcement regarding materials analysis from UAP sightings that you won't want to miss. Before we begin, though, two short points to note. First, for those interested in attending the conference, you can register for either in-person or virtual attendance at explorescu.org. The website also provides a hotel discount link for those planning to attend in person. Second, there's a slight issue with the video elements of this episode. Due to a technical glitch, which was my fault, the video of my side of the conversation wasn't recorded properly. Thankfully, though, the audio of the conversation is completely intact. This just means that if you're watching this on YouTube, while you'll hear both of us just fine, you will only see Rich's side of the conversation. My apology for this hiccup. Thankfully, though, Rich is a seasoned pro when it comes to sitting for a camera, and I know you'll find the content of our discussion well worth your time. So here now is my conversation with Executive Board Member of SCU, Rich Hoffman. Welcome to the Anomalous Review. I have Rich Hoffman with me today, the Executive Board Member of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, to talk about our upcoming conference, which is June 6th through the 8th at the Von Braun Center in Huntsville, Alabama. So, Rich, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be on board and talking about the conference. I'm very excited about it.
So how many conferences is this for SCU now? What number is this?
This is actually I believe it's the fifth that we've done. I mean, maybe it's the sixth. So we had 2019. We had to cancel 2020 with COVID.
Yeah.
So we had 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. Actually, it's the sixth.
Well, congratulations on putting together 6 pretty major conferences. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. It is a big deal.
Short amount of time, you've gotten an incredible amount of talent with SCU together also, and a pretty storied location that you're holding at, NASA, being in Huntsville.
Yeah, I mean, we were when we first had it, we were just outside of the gate to Redstone Arsenal and the Marshall Space Flight Center. And we were in the Rocket City Tavern, which the appropriate name for the city is the Rocket City, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have all this tremendous, NASA presence, and you've got the Army, you've got Ballistics Missile Defense Agency, you've got the Space and Missile Defense Agency, and there's all these different players in the space program, including commercial, and stuff like that around. So it's a very exciting place to be able to bring people who want to study this phenomena or get familiar with it. And so it's been very exciting to have it outside. This year, though, we've moved from the gate into the downtown Huntsville area at a large convention center that they've got down there. And so we're kind of excited about that big transition right there.
Yeah, that marks a kind of period of growth that we're in, or an inflection point of growth for SCU, it seems.
Yep.
So when you're putting together the conferences, is there a kind of theme? I mean, I know that at some level when you're putting it together, you think this year, these are the topics and this is the research that's going on. How do we kind of clump that together in a way? What makes this year different?
Well, I think that, looking at past year's themes, we were trying to connect science and UAP to study together. But I think, we all came to the conclusion, I think, that ultimately that it's best that you're framing this very rapidly strong interest into a very foundational study of the phenomena. And to really get down into the how do you really want to approach this topic? And that includes everything from not just putting papers together and having to deal with databases and various other things to do that, but it's also there's a lot of technology advancements that have gone on over the decades, at least for me, being in it for 6 decades. But a lot of advanced technologies that we can now deploy to actual sites to conduct our investigations. And then the big question is, well, what equipment do you need? What type of data are you trying to collect? And what kind of tools do you need to have them? So a lot of the focus here is about developing what a logical structure that we need to do to be able to get what we want and to get some answers. And so that's where we're planning to go with this.
It seems like kind of an upward cycle that a lot of sciences have to go through, where you collect data and you do work on it, and you have to kind of reiteratively come back to the question of like, well, how do we continue studying this? So it seems like this year is kind of one of those return to foundational questions about how to do UAP science. Is that right?
That's precisely correct. I mean, when you think about what I got started in this, like, back in the 1960s, right?
Mm.
What kind of tools did I have? Well, first off, I just had pencil and paper, colored pencil and paper, and I gave it to somebody, and I had, I would be having them do crude drawings. That I didn't have a cell phone. I had to look at my star charts to be able to figure out what I had, so I'd have one of those with me. And you had maybe a Geiger counter, an old World War II vintage Geiger counter, and you didn't have a lot of tools to go and study. Well, technology has definitely advanced and it continues to advance over these generations. And they're always adding new things, all the time. And it's getting to the point where it's like, well, if you think about like the gazillions of photos that are in the visible range of the spectrum, that we see all the time, right? Cameras, by the way, have improved. Okay, so
Sure.
let's talk about that. They've improved dramatically and the resolution has gotten much, much better. But again, we're always seeing these objects in the visible spectrum. Well, what do they look like in the other parts of the electromagnetic spectrum? Like we're starting to see now with those like, military things where they're using infrared,
Mm.
near infrared, mid-wave infrared, or a long-range infrared. But we're starting to see now what these objects look like in the infrared area. Well, what about the other parts of the spectrum? And can we deduce anything further by having those kinds of things and tools available? In addition to that, you have everything from, you typically hear on a submarine, like things like sonar, but, you have radar. Well, you also have now LIDAR, which is at our, we can use to be able to see what we can determine even using LIDAR technologies. So, and then, you've also got tools like drones that you can send up. I used a drone over on a case investigation in about an hour away from here for about 2 or 3 years. And the idea is that we were looking at a phenomena that was like an orb, if you would, that's called Earthlight phenomena. And we were trying to see if we could get the drones to be able to go over and get close to it. So I mean, drone technologies have improved, so we want to be able to enable that. And you're talking about technology change that's happening daily, and then also the cost of tools are, getting down to the point where you can actually afford it now. And so it's a very exciting time for the technological aspects that we can apply to sightings.
That's a very good point. So the return to foundations is also about like the introduction of all these new tools and capabilities that we didn't have when, even when you started doing this 60 years ago, they may have only had
Sure.
film cameras
Yeah.
or something, and now you've got gigapixel, digital cameras and a drone that you can
Yeah.
buy for $200 or
Oh, and Michael, let's not forget the fact that we're getting in, AI tools
something.
for using and deploying AI to be able to go after the data to help give us some context that we might have missed. So the AI stuff that's going on right now, and the big progress on that is being used now to be able to look and see if we can't look at maybe like blurry photos of objects or videos, and then to put them into focus
Mm.
using the AI tools. So it's being used in the graphics world as well, and image analysis, if you would. So it again, these are the things that we want to talk about.
So it sounds like a lot of this work is pretty sophisticated. Is the conference only for or only accessible to people who have a background in science?
Oh no, I mean anybody that wants to come is more than welcome to come. We've had over the years a great number of people who are, relatively new. They're not even maybe in STEM kind of programs or something like that, or STEM trained, if you would. But they come because they want to hear, number one, and they want to feel confident that we're doing something legitimately to be able to get answers. For decades, we've had no answers. If you look at even the MUFON database, I'm still a MUFON lifetime member, but uh, I'm not actively engaged in their investigations like I was. But at the time when I left, they had close to 80,000 cases, but they're mostly of, like, mistaken objects in the sky, lens flares. Occasionally you have a good video, but again, they were anecdotal. They
Hmm.
were not instrumented studies. So now what we've got those instrumented studies that we can go and we can work with, or even conduct, to be able to get scientists who want to look at data and analyze it. We can get them that. Well, that's very exciting to the general public, who is now also hearing about the fact that, for example, we see that, you know, the consistency and shapes have changed. Like there was an introduction of all these pyramid or triangular shaped objects or something of that. And they learn from what we're saying because we're also educating them at this session.
Yeah.
Uh, and so we get a lot of interest from a lot of people that don't have that background, but we also get a lot of people who have scientific backgrounds that ask some incredible questions.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the speaker list, it's a lot of career scientists and researchers that who are doing work in academia. They don't, this isn't primarily their thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Academia, and it's like educating, right? So you'll hear like Kevin Knuth will be talking about the USOs and stuff like that. Extremely, he's just an incredible presenter that puts it at a level where even the basic people that maybe are new into the UFO phenomena or UAP phenomena get an understanding of what he's trying to say.
Right.
So it's really, really good.
You do not have to have a serious background in the sciences to be able to really get
Right.
something out of the conference. So there's a lot of different presentations, and we don't have time to talk about all of them, but there's one that really
Sure.
stands out to me, which is the SCU Project panel. So this is a group of SCU members who are going through the five main research projects that SCU is currently involved in. Can you just kind of walk us through what those projects are and what the goals of them are?
Sure. Well, one of them we've kind of already talked about a little bit, but it's the database, where we've got an ongoing effort to be able to establish a good solid database to work from. The problem we've had over the years with any kind of like study is that there's a lot of organizations that have their own siloed pieces of data,
Mhm.
right? And you don't have somebody that brings it together to help you to look at all of the data and to actually see if there's something that we're missing, right? And so part of it is being able to get people to cooperate on giving us data, putting it into a data repository. And then once you do get that into that, you have to do a little bit of what they call data cleansing, if you would, and data structuring, if you would, on the kind of data that you're trying to be able to pull from. But I mean, things like, for example, somebody puts the wrong county that they were residing in when they saw their sighting. Okay, or there's some other aspects that are incorrect in the data that was brought together. So we do the like the legwork of getting that cleaned up so that when you do go and apply a set of criteria to the data of what you're looking for, that you can actually then get that return and give you some, data that can become now information, and then moving it up into even knowledge as a result of the what you've been able to come up with. And so data crunching is very, very critical. The database struck the team we've got is applying that, and with the long-term goal that they would be able to apply things like machine learning or AI capabilities to it, which will help us immensely.
Sure. And it may be even that when you're trying to combine databases, they don't all ask the exact same questions. And so
Yes.
you're having to go through and sometimes manually line those
Yes.
up and figure out what data points are even there. Fascinating. So SCU is building an enormous database. So another one of the projects is a USO project. You said Kevin Knuth is
Yeah,
getting.
Kevin's going to be speaking about USOs, and I think, and it's going to be, I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say. But ultimately, it's a situation where we have a team that's been working together to look at, like, can we characterize anything about the USOs that have been reported? By the way, we also call them UAP because, the phenomenon is transmedium, right? But we do recognize that people like to hang on to the USOs, and it's helpful for us to be able to separate out, oh, we're talking about the water objects. You
Yeah.
know?
And there may be
Yeah.
certain characteristic differences about the submerged
Yeah.
objects. They may be the same objects that operate in very different ways when they're submerged. So maybe it's a helpful distinction. Yeah.
Yes. And so ultimately, it's about trying to get an understanding of where do these things tend to occur, where are they most reported. We obviously know right now that it seems like, objects are dropping into the ocean or in the ocean along the East Coast as well as the West Coast of the United States. But then the question, is also, I mean, Puerto Rico seems to have activity in the water as well. Uh, the Russians, early on had about 15,000 cases of underwater objects that they had collected. Where were those? And so are there any parts of the ocean that are of particular interest? That's one aspect of this. Then the other aspect of this is there any kind of shapes that stand out about those objects that go into the water? In other words, does the triangle going into the water, or is it just the disc-shaped objects?
Mhm.
So if more we can pull together, the more we can learn, we'll be able to help then give us some sort of direction about those types of craft.
It's a fascinating set of questions. So there's now also an origins project that SU is doing. Tell me a little bit about that and the state of it.
Yeah, so ultimately, well, let me back up for a second, just one sec, that we've had one that looked at intent, which was the nuclear side, that was looking at all the nuclear cases that have evolved and trying to see if these things have like some sort of tendency to go to nuclear sites, and let's confirm that, right? And we did that study over a period of like from 1945 up to 1975 or whatever like that. And we've now published, I believe, three papers, and I think we're even working on a fourth study that's related to that. But the origins is also to try to look at, what are all the plausible hypotheses for where these objects might be coming from, and then seeing if you can match that up to their behavior. For example, if the objects have a tendency to be toward water, the obvious question then comes into play. Are they using this as a base of operations?
Mhm.
Um, you're also potentially looking at, cases that are reported with beings that look like or resemble us in the sense that they're humanoid, right? So they stand on two legs, or they got, two eyes, they got ears, they have two arms and hands, and everything that looks like they're bipedal, just like us. And we're saying, like, well, is it potentially like that they are from the future, or from the past, or what? I mean, can we deduce that? What's the plausibility of them being ET and flying from space to here? Well, then you could look at it and say, well, wait a minute. If you take a look, and Kevin Knuth did an excellent job of presenting this a couple of years ago, but you look at that in the context of the speeds that have been reported, like, for example, the Nimitz case, the Bethurum case, that was back in the early days where you actually had radar data. If you looked at those data points in terms of speeds, you can relatively find that if they're going Mach 50 and above, then they're considered at the point where they're like almost like interstellar.
Yeah.
And then you have to question, well, whether or not, you can traverse these kind of distances. Are they coming from somewhere off planet? And then you can find cases out there, for example, like the Tehran case in 1976, where there was a deep space satellite that actually tracked an object that was coming from space that went down to Tehran. And so, okay, well, that tells you that they're in space as well, right? Could they, hypothetically, could they use the back of the moon? I mean, we don't know. Again, so where are the origins of these things? Most likely, can we deduce those, look at those hypotheses? And at some point, it would be nice if we could actually eliminate some of them as being not plausible. So then you can get to the point where you can make a hypothesis and actually try to confirm it, right?
That's what seems to distinguish what SU is doing from like pure speculation, because you're trying to first just identify what is the space of possibilities for explaining these things, and how can we pare that space down and eliminate things, which is a very
Yeah.
different project from just wildly speculating. Maybe they come
Oh
from
yeah. Oh yeah.
underground, whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, we've had like, decades of speculation because we've had no data to work with. And so ultimately it's about how do we get the data to be able to confirm or reject the hypothesis, or even to, maybe there's multiple hypotheses involved. And so what do we need to do to be able to get closer to coming up with an origin point for these objects?
Yeah. So tell me about the GR project. What does that stand for, and what is SU doing with that?
Well, looking at the laws of physics, general relativity, and being able to actually go and look at these objects in that context to see if we can determine anything that helps to match this. And it's an exciting project about looking at, again, applying the theory of relativity to these objects to see what we can learn. And Gary Stevenson does an excellent job of presenting that, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but anyway, I'm looking forward to what he has to say again of what they've come up with. But it's, you know, we 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 work within the laws of physics, but guess what? Some of these objects might be working on different principles of those laws of physics, and we ought to know about them, right?
There's a great interview with Richard Feynman where he talks about studying physics as being like watching people play chess and thinking that you understand the rules for a while until you see somebody castle or something and you realize, oh, that's not really a violation of the rules. They're just rules that we didn't know about. So it seems like that's kind of analogous to what we're doing when we study UAP. Like we think we have pretty good models of physics, but then we can counter things that seem to kind of violate those models. But it doesn't mean that they're really violating nature, but that we're understanding nature better when we see kind of limit cases or things that do really weird things.
Yeah, like I liken it to the fact that when you think about the tic tac dropping from 20,000 feet and stopping above the water in 0.78 of a second, not even before you say the one,
Hmm.
it's already dropped 20,000 feet and stopped, right? So you're going in and saying like, well, that's insane. And how is that doing that in our atmosphere, not creating a sonic boom, not in any kind of like conventional shape that would support it, no propulsion system, no kinetic energy release, no apparently not heating up in the atmosphere and everything else we know. If you look at a meteor at night, it's coming in at about that speed or even, whatever. And it's leaving a trail. You don't see anything like that. So how does it navigate and do that and not break up into small pieces from the sheer inertia and you're going like, well, that's working on some other level. Did it negate its mass? Did it somehow, is this a space-time kind of phenomena that it's dealing with where it can manipulate space-time and do that? How does it do it? And so if we can find indications of how they're potentially doing that, think of what we would learn. I mean, it's remarkable. And to be a tic-tac shape, which is just, I mean, how does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So,
Aerodynamically or whatever. Like, what is
yeah,
the reason?
exactly.
So the last project on the list is for this panel is drones. What is SCU doing with drones? And I know reconnaissance and investigations is part of it, but there are other parts too.
So what we found out from looking at drones, uh, let's put it this way. The public seems to be confused about UFOs and drones. Okay, so there's misreporting of drones as being UFO as well. And there are just so many things up in the air that, quite frankly, a lot of people misidentify these things, and drones is one of them. Uh, but more importantly, what we're finding out, and this was looking at the FAA drone reporting database, okay? We're finding out that some of the objects that are being reported in that database look like, smell like, and taste like UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing is Ralph Howard and the team that they've got are going through and actually looking at those types of things to see if they can come up with some sort of a better understanding of maybe that these things are UFOs are being called drones, and they're in that database, much like we also do, by the way, with the Fireball database, where people report fireballs that are the American Meteor Society collects, in which there might also be UFOs, right?
So it sounds like the
So,
misidentification goes both ways. There are people who misidentify
yes, yes.
UAPs as drones and people who just misidentify drones as UAP.
That is correct. And so the bottom line is that it's another data point. It's another way for us to look at data to see if it makes any sense. When you have somebody reporting what they thought was a drone to the FAA, and the FAA, and you listen and you actually see what they reported, and it's far exceeding the capabilities of anything we call as a drone in terms of speed or whatever like that, then it's potentially got maybe another explanation, and we ought to know about it, right?
Fascinating. This is great. So tell me, so we said the conference is June 6th through the 8th. Anybody can attend, but you don't have to be physically there. You can attend virtually. How do people do that? How do they attend in either way?
Well, first off, I encourage people to go up on our website, which is explorescu.org. And there are links up there to, for example, if you want to see who the speakers are, you can go. We have the agenda that's posted up there for the 3 days, basically, or 2.5 days, if you would. Um, and then also there's a link to register. You can go up and register. And right now, the rate for just virtual attendance, for example, is $75. And what does that give you? Well, we have an incredible tool called Huba that we use, which allows for a lot of almost like you're there.
Mm.
It's a lot of collaboration. People are sharing all over the place, discussing things. They have the presentations that they can view. And by the way, they can review anybody who attends, including the virtual people, can watch the videos for up to 3 months after the conference
Wow.
and be able to, go back as many times as they want and watch that presentation. Uh, and that's also very beneficial to people in other time zones. So, like, let's say over in Europe, where it's maybe like 7 or 8 hours later, it's a horrible time in the middle of the morning that they're going to be watching this or something of that nature. Well, they don't have to do that. They can watch the presentations, during their work hours, right? So we are encouraging people to sign up to have that access for the next 3 months, and also they can still ask questions of people that are in attendance and have conversations, because what I've seen is people having conversations and using the tool to collaborate for a long period of time afterward. So again, it's a great tool. $75 gets you that, and I mean it's really a good deal.
Yeah.
Uh, and then you could also be in person if you want. And even being in person, then you get a chance to bump into people, collaborate, talk, and all that stuff like that. At the same time, you can go into the tool and you can also use it at your leisure and to your advantage.
And there's a hotel deal too, right? There's a hotel rate for the conference. So
Yes, we have a hotel rate. We have actually 3 hotels around the Von Braun Center that people can use. The Hampton Inn, the Embassy Suites, and then there's the Spring Hill Inn and Suites that's also there as well. That we're gonna have a number of like happy hours up on a rooftop bar and stuff like that. That'll be fun. And there's plenty of restaurants for people to go to. And then it's convenient for people to get to it from the airport. It's like maybe a 10-minute drive from the airport here in Huntsville.
Man, it sounds like a great time. Is there anything else you want to tell us about the SCU conference this year before we wrap up?
No, I think it's again, I'm very excited, and I think I leave it up to people to look at, the agenda and to see what we're talking about, see the incredible people that are going to be presenting. Again, good number of PhDs. I'm pleased that Jay Stratton is going to be coming to talk. He's our keynote. Jay, if you don't know who he is, Jay was the lead of the UAP task force. I believe he also played in on the OSAP program and the ATIP or in those days as well. And so he's had that long history of working in this program and has had a lot of great information that he is planning to share. And then one other point that I'll make, and that is that Matthew Shidegas from the University of Albany also has a very important announcement that he wants to make as well. And this is about remember the medal that was obtained? It's called Arts Parts, I believe.
Yeah.
That medal, he ran it through extensive more tests, and he's got some interesting announcements to make as well.
Oh, fascinating. So there's a surprise element too. You can't know before you attend. Rich, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you at this year's conference, and I hope you enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you so much, Michael. Glad to be on and talk about it.
The Anomalous Review is a project of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. It's hosted and produced by me, Michael Glosson, and edited by Kelly Michelle. Our theme song was written and performed by Telma Crisanti. Communication and PR work is by Preston Dykes. Our advisory team includes Jennifer Roach, Robert Powell, Richard Hoffman, Joshua Pearson, and Larry Hancock. To find out more about SCU, check out explorescu.org.